On July 29th, Kevin Warsh stood at a podium and told the country the Fed was holding rates steady. 3 of his own officials voted against him. And while he was still talking, the market rendered a verdict of its own. The 30-year Treasury yield closed at 5.27%, the highest level since 2007. Warsh had said markets should play the ball, not the referee. Within the hour, the market played the referee. And the number it just moved is the one that sets what it costs you to borrow, not the Fed's rate, that one. By the end of this, you'll know exactly which number prices your loan, why a Fed cut wouldn't rescue it, and the single line on a chart that tells you whether this keeps going or stops. So don't take my word for any of it. Everything in this video is on the record. The Fed's own statement, the descent count, the closing yield, and a fund manager who was on live television while it happened, saying the quiet part into a camera. Here's the thing almost nobody says out loud. The Fed doesn't set the rate that prices your house. The bond market does. That sounds like a technicality. It isn't. It's the entire reason the last 4 weeks went the way they did. Start with what the Fed actually did on July 29th. It held. No cut, no hike, but 3 officials broke ranks and voted to raise instead. That's not a routine meeting. That's a committee that can't agree on which direction the danger is coming from. Warsh went to the podium to explain the hold, and he said something that's going to follow him around. He said markets should be playing the ball, not the referee. Now watch what the ball did. The 30-year Treasury had spent 2 months failing to clear one level, 518. It kept touching it and backing away. Jeffrey Gundlach, who runs DoubleLine Hedge Fund, said it plainly on CNBC that day. They kept bumping into 518. On July 29th, it stopped bumping. It closed at 5.27%, the highest since 2007, 9 basis points. That's the whole move. And I want you to sit with how small that is, because the size is the point. A violent move you could explain away, a bad auction, a hot inflation print, 9 basis points through a ceiling that held for 2 months on the day the Fed said hold is not an accident. That's a market quietly declining to take the Fed's word for it. If you've been waiting for rates to come down before you buy or refinance, that sentence is about your money. Because it wasn't one number moving, it was 2 in opposite directions. Picture a rope. The Fed has one end. That's the short end, the overnight rate, the thing the Fed actually controls. The market has the other end. That's the long end, the 10-year, the 30-year, money that gets lent for decades. Your credit card is tied to the Fed's end. So is your home equity line. When the Fed holds, those hold, and the Fed deserves the credit for it. Your mortgage is tied to the other end. On July 29th, the Fed pulled its end tight and refused to move. The market took the other end and walked away with it. The 2-year fell while the 30-year rose. The gap between them went from 77 basis points to 94. During a single press conference, in real time, while the Fed chairman was still speaking. That is a market saying 2 things at once. We believe you'll sit still now, and we believe you'll pay for it later. Gundlach's read was blunter than mine. Whatever credibility Warsh built at the June meeting, he unwound it that afternoon. The rope didn't break, it stretched, and the stretching is the part you feel. This has a name, and it's older than a lot of people watching. In the early 1990s, the bond market did this to a sitting government. Yields rose until policy changed. James Carville, who ran Bill Clinton's campaign, told the Wall Street Journal that at one time he wanted to come back as a president or a pope, but now he wanted to come back as the bond market because you can intimidate everybody. In 1994, the market proved him right. Gundlach reached for the old phrase for it on air without being prompted. Bond market vigilantes. You might be thinking this sounds like a conspiracy theory. It isn't a theory, it's a documented episode with a newspaper quote attached to it. But here's where 2026 breaks the pattern, and it breaks it badly. In 1994, the vigilantes were disciplining Congress over a deficit, and the total federal debt was about $4.7 trillion. The Fed was hiking at the same time, so the central bank and the market were pulling the same direction. Today, the debt is just under $40 trillion. Call it 8.5 times bigger. And this time, the market isn't disciplining Congress. It's disciplining the Fed. It's enforcing monetary discipline that it thinks the Fed won't. The bond market said, if you won't make it more expensive to borrow, we will. Congress you can vote out, the Fed you can't. But the bond market believes it can influence the Fed. And it's trying. Just so we're on the same page, the Fed controls the short end of the rope, and it held. The market controls the long end, and it pulled. Which is why what happens to your loan stopped running through Washington. Now the part that should actually worry you, the 30-year Treasury last sat around 5% in 2007. Same yield, roughly, a completely different country underneath it. In 2007, the federal debt was about $9 trillion. Today it's 4.5 times that, carried at a similar interest rate. At one time, the interest bill was a line item. Now it's bigger than the defense budget. Same number on the screen, nothing like the same consequence, and it reaches your side of the table faster than most people expect. Freddie Mac publishes the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate every Thursday. On July 2nd, it was 6.43%. On July 30th, it was 6.66%. 23 basis points in 4 weeks, while the Fed did nothing at all. That isn't a forecast, that already happened. Anyone who spent July waiting for the Fed to make borrowing cheaper watched borrowing get more expensive instead. Gundlach thinks it reaches 7% if the long end keeps grinding, so let's do that math on an ordinary loan. $400,000, 30-year fixed. At 6.66%, principal and interest runs $2,571 a month. At 7%, $2,661, just over $90 a month difference. That's $1,088 a year, over the life of the loan, $32,653. Same house, same day, same down payment. The only thing that changed is what the bond market thinks of the people who owe $40 trillion. And notice what wouldn't fix it. The Fed could cut tomorrow. Cutting pulls the Fed's end of the rope. Your mortgage sits on the other end. If the market's problem is the debt and the inflation path, a cut can make the long end worse, not better. So who eats this and who gets paid? The one who eats it is the one who did what they were told. If you sat out 2025 and most of 2026 waiting for the Fed to cut before you bought or refinanced or locked anything in, you were watching the wrong scoreboard. The referee was never the one holding the whistle. The one who gets paid is whoever is buying now. Every buyer of a 30-year Treasury at 5.27% just locked in the highest long yield since before the financial crisis. Every lender writing paper at 7% is writing it against somebody who waited. Warsh said, "Play the ball, not the referee." The market took him at his word. It played the ball, and the ball went straight through the referee. That's the transfer. The only question left is which side of it you're standing on. Let's be honest about what this actually means, because one day is one day. Gundlach said it himself on air. One robin doesn't make a spring. A single close above a ceiling is a data point, not a trend, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And there's an obvious way this resolves that has nothing to do with me being right. 3 officials already voted to hike. The bond market just voted the same way. If Warsh reads that and moves in September, the market gets what it's asking for, the long end can relax, and this whole thing gets rewritten as a Fed that listened, followed its own advice, and played the ball. So here's the line that decides it, and I'll hold myself to it. If the 30-year closes back below 5.18 and stays under it through the September meeting, everything in this video is off the table. Write the number down. There's a clean path to that outcome too. The conflict in the Middle East calms down. Energy comes down. Inflation expectations follow, and the long end relaxes. If that happens, the verdict gets revised, and I'll say so on this channel. Until then, here's the posture and 3 things you can watch yourself. 1. The number is 5.18, not the Fed's rate. Put it somewhere you'll see it. While the 30-year holds above that line, long borrowing costs are grinding higher, and time is not on the side of anyone waiting. 2. The gap between the 2-year and the 30-year. It was 94 basis points after that meeting. If it keeps widening while the Fed holds, the market is repricing the long run, not the next quarter. That check takes 30 seconds. 3. Listen for what Warsh says at the next meeting. If he starts talking about the long end, about the shape of the curve, that's the Fed admitting the rope has 2 ends. Nobody brings up the part they control least unless it's become a problem. Those 3 tell you about this month. But inflation never shows up in one number. It shows up across several at once. That's why I created the free inflation scoreboard. 7 macro inflation signals tracked monthly. Link in the description. And if you're sitting on a decision to buy or refinance, the number that prices it isn't the one you've been watching on the news. 2 outcomes out of July 29th. On one, it was a bad afternoon. Energy cools, the long end settles back under 5.18, and Warsh gets to say the market came around to his view. On the other, July 29th is the day it became visible. The day a market looked at $40 trillion of debt and a committee that couldn't agree and decided it would price that risk itself, whatever the podium said. I told you at the start I'd hand you the one line that tells you which road you're on. It's 518. That's the whole tell. And keep the momentum going. Watch, is the US planning a $50,000 gold revaluation? It's on your screen. And if this changed how you see the Fed, subscribe. Remember, this isn't personal financial advice. It's education so you can build your own plan. See you in the next video.